Welcome to Take Your Medicine podcast. My name is Phil Cowley. I've been a pharmacist for 25 years, and if I have learned anything, it is that everybody's story is worth listening to. And today, we're going to jump right in. Thyroid. I think I probably get 80 questions a week about thyroid, and the truth is, nobody really knows a whole ton about it. So today's guest is Aubry Bennion, and Aubry is the queen of colorful, fluffy balls of great big huge, exciting projects and crafts. And of course, we all love her. Thank you, Aubry, for being on.
Kind of you to say. I'm adding that to my personal resume. Queen of fluffy balls.
It's so cool though, because I love color. So you're a serious, I'm like a catfish. Like you put color on there, I'm going to jump at it. And so
I'm into it.
I love it. Hair care was never really my biggest problem until it became. And now I found the difference between one product and another is huge. So what I listen to is you, my listeners and followers, what you like. Bonda Boost has never had a bad complaint given to me. I love the products that Bonda Boost have because people always love them. Don't you like a product you can just tell people to use and you know nothing's coming back to land on you? You know you can trust it. Bonda Boost, their HG product line, has been wonderful. That thick, full-looking hair that you've always been looking for. But the best part is your scalp, your head, your hair will all love it. It will feel the way you want to. So go to bondaboost.com right now. Use medicine20, save a little bit money, and I don't have to worry about a thing because I know you're already going to love it. All right, so we're going to jump right into it. Thyroid problems are a universal issue. And part of the problem you have with thyroid issues is that you first go to the doctor, and because so many people are in the weight loss train, they come in asking for thyroid.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get pushed to the side because the doctors hear something that they don't really mean. You talk thyroid like, oh, you just want to lose weight. I'm going to preface that because most people I know have had that issue. So what I want to do, I want to dive right in. Let's start at the very beginning. So the year was
Spring of 2021. And this doesn't have to be a COVID story, but there is a theme of COVID because it just was that, right?
Well, everything's a COVID story now. Like, unfortunately, it changed like anybody can say what they want, but 2020 and all of our lives took a 15 to 80 degree turn one direction or another.
Yeah.
So it is, and it also is because COVID changed healthcare forever.
Mm-hmm.
So it absolutely is. It doesn't mean you're positive or negative, but you can say it's a COVID story just because nothing has been the same since.
Okay. Well, then this is a COVID story.
Excellent.
Let me tell you a COVID story. So it was right about the time I got my vaccine. And I'll say, I'm just a relatively healthy person. And admittedly, I felt so naive to the healthcare system, to medical care, to hospitals, to all those things. If I ever had anything, I just would go to the urgent care, get it handled for $100 and be on my way.
Blissfully unaware is the perfect place to be.
I wish we could go back to that time, right?
Yeah.
I got my vaccine and I was heading out of town. My first trip, my first airplane ride. Please blast it. Vaccine's not going to give me, any sort of issues where I'm not going to feel down. Like, please bless, I can eat the good Nashville food and I can have a good trip and be a good guest, not be a buzzkill. And I was good through the week. And about a week after I came home, I just flipped 180 on my head. Like I went from being a super healthy person to I was shaky. I literally shook like this. I felt like I had run a marathon every single day. I was down taking a nap at 2:00 every single day. I didn't have a fever, but I was hot and I was sweaty. I mean, just like textbook answers. But they were textbooks only if you know to look for what is Graves' disease or what is hyperthyroidism. And I didn't know that at the time.
Well, you had no history. So this makes it even a trickier thing. And let's remind people at that time when you would call with symptoms to a teledoctor, what would they tell you?
It was COVID.
That's it.
Yeah, everything. So I just knew nothing about this is normal. And I have been flipped on my head to me, it really is like the BCAD of my life of when I got Graves' disease. And listen, thyroid issues, every woman has them, right? Yeah, I acted like this was that I was the 1 in a million case. Like, can you believe this happens to people? I was the rare case in my mind because it was just such an anomaly that I went from what I was to what I was currently, right?
But I love that statement because here's the deal. It's when it's you, it is the one in a million because you don't realize, okay, so in general, I talk about childbirth and I'm going to get like bombarded with things because I
Yeah.
don't know. And there is no way for me to know that. But when you watch somebody go through it the first time, they
Uh-huh.
become that one and they are that one in a million.
Yeah.
And the reason why when we tie this up at the end, we're going to talk about how you need to be your own one in a million.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. So I didn't know where to go because I didn't know what was happening to me. And what do? We instantly turn to our phones and I'm like, do I have cancer? Do I have, I'm just thinking through all these things. And
It's
anyway,
funny because cancer will always be the first thing we jump to. We've never jumped to, oh, I ate bad food. It's like, oh, I
the
got the
life is
cancer.
over.
It's
Yeah.
done. Like
Life
it's
is
our
over.
first, it says something about us.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy, like, it's been 4 years in hindsight, it's 2020, but, like, my heart rate was beating at 200 beats a minute, and that wasn't normal. Like, I knew that wasn't normal. Am I gonna wake up in the morning? I don't wanna be too dramatic about it, but, like, in the moment, I I was being really dramatic about it because what was happening to my body was really dramatic, and the first thing I needed to do was to find a primary care doc because I knew I needed to get to a specialist, and I couldn't
Right.
without a
Isn't
primary
that,
care doc. And as
isn't that
my
a trick?
former healthy person, it wasn't the urgent care. And so but like, how long does it take to get into a primary care doc? Another thing I was naive about.
Right.
I'm out there like, who has a primary care doc? I'll take them if they're mediocre. I don't need just somebody to get me to where I need to go. It took weeks to get into a primary care doc. It was just
So,
unnecessary time
so this whole
before I
time
could.
you're dealing with what's hyperthyroid. So what we've got here with a hyperthyroid situation when you have it. So in Graves' disease, quite often it'll go super hyper. And then sometimes it'll be so stressful on the thyroid itself, it kind of starts to disseminate. But during that time, it actually is one of those points where you can have major issues. When pregnant women get Graves' disease, it becomes a nightmare for pharmacy and for doctors because that heart rate does go up like that. Your chances for blood clots go up, your chances for diseases of the heart and lung. And if you have any underlying cardiac issues, they do come out. So to give you credit and anybody else, if your heart rate's at 200, you should be panicked, just to put it out there.
Oh, it was 170 to just walk to the mailbox. The day it hit 200, I had walked up one flight of stairs. I work with contractors who, like, it's very brotherly. And I thought, if this is the way I go, like, save me some dignity, but they don't have to find me in the women's restroom. And, I'm like,
Right.
none of us want to do that. But
No.
day I hit 200, I was like, this cannot be. This get me into someone. But to the point of all of this is, how do I raise the flag that my issues are as important as anyone else's and that I deserve immediate attention?
Well, and
How do I get to the front of the line?
I'm guessing from a little I from the way I know you, drawing tension to yourself saying that I'm weak is probably not your strongest suit. You probably wanna say, "I can do this by myself." It'd be my guess.
I'm a rule follower, so I'm like very process, right? Like, I'm gonna go through the channels. But what I did do, and like, bless the internet, I put out a call on the internet and I was like, anyone who has any connection to anyone in scheduling, please help me, right?
Right.
But I did get into a primary care doc, but it was that much longer before I could get in to see a thyroid specialist, before I could see an endocrinologist.
So we started this in 2021.
I got my shot in March. I think I struggled through until about May. I remember being on vacation in May, making phone calls poolside and trying to get into a specialist. The soonest I could get in was July.
And this is the whole time your heart rate's high, you feel sick.
I'm shaking as I'm trying to put on my mascara.
And the other thing, so they actually quite often talk about hyperthyroidism, and it feels like you run a marathon at the end of every day, is what they say, because your heart rate's so high, and you start to lose fairly substantial amounts of your lean muscle, and so it starts to like really get after you. So your appetite's kind of gone, but then you kind of feel like you can't move. You're seeing atrophy.
Everything was low. There are bad things that happen all over the world, but for me in that moment, everything was low. Everything was hard.
Did that primary care specialist, I mean, the primary care doctor, when you got in there, were they pretty accepting of the whole thing? Did they check it pretty quick?
Yeah, that was easy, right? That's just like lab work.
Yeah.
That's pretty routine. And so I was really glad to just use them as like a stepping stone. Like, thank you very much. I'll take these results to a specialist. They had recommended someone that I couldn't get into for so many months. Of course, I'm crowdsourcing on the internet again, and everybody's favorite endocrinologist is out of network for me. So I couldn't go see her. I thankfully did get a DM from someone that was like, "Hi, I'm the queen scheduler for University of Utah. I will get you in with this person." And so I got in with a woman who I hear probably has really great plaques on her wall. Says, "We're masked, right? I'm feeling terrible. She can see this much of me." She walks in and it's very clinical, right? She's like, "I have your blood results. Your numbers are off the charts. You have hyperthyroidism. You have Graves' disease. All the weight that you've lost is going to come back. Sorry to tell you," right?
I love this sigh right before you said,
Okay.
because that's what she did to you. Because you start out with, you have hyperthyroid, like almost like she's bored of because
Oh,
it's so mundane.
because I think she had seen 8 of me that day, right? Like this was so life altering for me and so routine for her.
And the thing is so I say this all the time because I put it out there. The system is broken. So
Mhm.
you've taken a physician there who went into this to come into that room and give you the equivalent of a huge hug and make you better. But the
Mm.
system has driven you batty because you can't get into it.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier. Like, hey, can we take another COVID test because we get paid for it? You're like, that's fine, but can we please look at something else too? Like, you're on
Yeah.
board, but like, I get it. You're getting extra money for the test. That's fine. Go for it. But can we please move forward? And so you're frustrated, but she comes in and burnout of the
Mhm.
whole system is there, and nobody does their job on the expectation of being burned out on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Because she said, "You have 3 courses of treatment. Take methimazole," which I was already on that. I think my primary care doc prescribed that. That made my body itch from the inside out,
Yeah.
head to toe. If we are bad people and we go to the bad place, our body itches. That's like, I swear that's the
Oh, yeah.
worst pain on earth.
Yeah,
So,
you can't sleep, you
so
can't think, you can't do it, and you're so mean to everybody around
I
you. Like,
hope
you're
I was
always
just more
sweet.
pathetic than mean, but
But
it
most
was
people, they come in, they're so
miserable.
angry in the pharmacy. It's like they wanna just chuck stuff at every like, you can see them pushing through, and so you start talking to 'em like, "Oh, no." So
It
you hurry.
was It was bad. So, number 1, take more methimazole, but she's like, "I know that's not gonna work for you because you're already having bad side effects." Number 2 is the radioactive iodine. Number 3 is surgery. And at that point, 1, 2, 3, I said, "Do I try 1? And if that doesn't work, then I move on to 2." She literally put her hand out. She said, "Don't interrupt me. I am simply explaining to you your options, and you have to let me explain these, and you're gonna have to make a decision in 48 hours of what to do."
You got the three-year-old
I
crush.
started to well up. I mean, I'm in a mask. She can only see my eyes. And I thought, this wicked woman, this will do me no favors to cry in front of her, but
Right.
get me out of here. I don't want anything to do with this woman who came with such high praises and so highly recommended. And someone pulled some favors to get me into her. I choose not this.
Right. Well, it's interesting too because what you're feeling there, I think, is like a universal feeling. I have some families we work with, and one of our families, it's been a long time, it's been in another city, but they had a bunch of kids who had some really bad eye. I think they've had like, I don't know, 20 or 30 eye surgeries for those kids. And those guys roll through everything. But the first few times, it was the worst thing in the world. In the same aspect, I've seen moms, I've seen grown men come in just scared to death. And I think to myself, I don't think our brains have a way to compensate the suffering of somebody else. We only can understand what we see. In her moment, she's like, "You're fine. I'll give you the iodine. We'll send you home. It's gonna be fine. I'll just put you on levothyroxine. We're gonna be done." In her mind, she's like, "This is so boring." But I think it's a really important thing because as patients, you have to remember that if you're not advocating for yourself,
Yeah.
they don't see it because we've become, as part of the system, really jaded.
I could not get out of her office fast enough. But then, as the University of Utah medical system, everything's done through the portal. I genuinely thought I should have done my research. There's an episode of Grey's Anatomy in some early season where the hospital gets overthrown with rollout of a new system, and there's these little robotic machines that come through, and everything is handled that way. And the people, the doctors, are like, "Are we supposed to do this?" And to me, that's what it is. Like, "Oh, I'm working through the system." The only way I can communicate with anyone in the entire University of Utah medical system is to write an email in the portal, and it says, your email will be responded to in 72 hours.
Right.
I was mind blown that that's really how it is and that that's what everyone around me has been doing and that's how it functions. Because, like, I mean, I'm a professional communicator. I talk to people, but like, I just want to talk to a person.
Well, you need to
Not her because I don't like her anymore, but like, I have questions, she sent me home with a one pager. Read this, make your choice, let me know by Monday.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I demanded. I called and called and called until I talked to somebody on the inside and they said, well, I can put a note in. And that got answered in 24 hours instead of 72 hours. And so I got a half-hour appointment with the doctor again. I said, let me talk to a person
Right.
to talk through my option because my gut said radioactive iodine wasn't for me. She didn't biopsy me. We didn't do any ultrasounds. I didn't know, did I have nodules? Was I precancerous? Like, I didn't know. And it didn't seem like she cared to find out. It just path of least resistance. But
So I got a
like,
question for you, like on this
okay.
right here. And this is something I see all the time. So there seems to be that patients have a hard time getting a hold of anybody. And it's pushed them to this point where they feel like, well, I have to become pushy. I have to become ornery. I have to get into this.
Mhm.
The frustration and everything you felt, how much that could have been solved with just a simple phone call from a nurse.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just to say, Aubrey, this is super normal.
Mhm.
So tell me what you're feeling. Let me hear you. And then
I
just
just,
stop.
yeah, just talk me through the option, right?
Right.
Talk me through the pros and cons of each one or the likelihood of them being effective.
The
What are
long-term side effects, and what does
yeah,
it
all
mean to
those
be on
things.
medications? How am I gonna hair falling out is like the number one thing women hate. Like, they'll put up with anything before that is so hard for women, and but number 2, you start mentioning weight, and now you've just become that bully in junior high. It's one of those things where it's pretty easy to say to them, "Well, with the fluctuation you've had, you went hyperthyroid," which
Yeah.
happens, and now that we've had some muscle loss as well as some weight loss, but in the end, your healthy body will come back, and if you can regulate it, you'll be as good as new compared to
Yeah.
you're gonna gain back the weight. It's just so curious to me how much time is spent making problems we have to clean up later because the system's the way it is.
Yeah. I mean, couldn't we solve a lot of our problems if we talked with like benefits messaging, right? That's what I do at work. Like, we got to talk about the benefits, the risks, the benefits, all those things.
Right?
Here's an 8.5 by 11. Take it home and research it.
And
Then
then
we
you
solve.
reach out to the internet, and
Yes.
then it's hard to say, okay, so you get on the internet, you see the whole thing out there. Like you're gonna have somebody that goes out there and says radioactive iodine will destroy your liver and you'll grow a third eye.
Say it like we should rebrand it because radioactive iodine is a frightening phrase. Swallow this, like it's delivered to you in like a hazmat suit, and then you have to clear out your house and you have to isolate. And mind you, I live by myself. I had a renter at the time, so there was somebody downstairs. Okay, no,
He's fine.
but also like remind this is mid 21. I had been isolating for a year and a half.
Right. How
You
freaked out were
tell
you?
me to isolate even more while I'm going through this hardest thing of my life, like, that never sat well with me. So my question to her was, "Do I need to try this? And if that doesn't work, then I go to surgery? Or can I just knowing my circumstances and knowing myself and my body and my gut and all these things, can I just go to surgery? What's the drawback of going to surgery? Like, why was radioactive iodine better than surgery?
So what
Those
did you find
things I
out?
needed to talk through.
I mean, they're gonna
So
wanna know. So let's jump in because well, if there's actually a fourth so right now there the last few days, there's been some new drugs that have coming out, so they can block a lot. So Graves' disease is interesting. So we're gonna jump into this for a second. Okay, so
okay.
Graves' disease, at some point, we talked about the COVID vaccine. So I
Mhm.
wanna tie this in a little bit. So we have in our bodies the thyroid we have our T3, T4, and it runs through. And there are ways that our body will create mimic type substances, molecules.
Uh,
And there's been really good ties to Epstein-Barr and sudden onset Graves' disease, which is what you
Yeah.
really sounds like you had to me. So if you have somebody with sudden onset Graves' disease, you start thinking, well, could it be a virus that set it off?
Uh-huh.
Or could it be the fact that this was an underlying stress? Because if you have high levels of cortisol, it changes your thyroid. Your thyroid puts out more. Your immune system says, what's this? And then it puts out the antibodies. It could be, and you had high levels of stress.
Mhm.
You are isolated. Now, the thing about our immune system is that we use vaccines because they look and act like the virus.
Yeah.
So our immune systems, it's really interesting because everybody wants to point to one vaccine or another. Traditionally, there's always been side effects with vaccines that are similar to this. Like if you have underlying autoimmune diseases or your immune system's hyperactive, there's chance of creating issues. And so, but that's a chance, generally speaking, most of us know. And like we were talking earlier, you knew you were in line, you took one for the team,
Front of the line. Yep.
front of the
Yep.
line, we're good to
Willing.
go.
Yep.
So when that happens, your immune system then puts out these antibodies. And these antibodies, they go in and they actually attach onto the thyroid. And that thyroid starts to pump out the gas like wildfire. It's coming out of everywhere, which then that extra thyroid is everything that boosts the metabolism.
Mhm.
So your hair was falling out, I'd have to
Mhm.
assume. Your hormones were all over the place.
I have so much hair.
And so when you lose hair, generally speaking, even if it's another reason, the thyroid is playing in that hair loss. So when your hormones shift, so if your estrogen or progesterone goes up or down, especially your estrogen, your thyroid shifts with it. And so your hair falls out as a secondary cause quite often. At this point, to paint the picture, when we're in hyperthyroid, your heart is beating out of your chest.
Mhm.
You can't do anything. So you feel like you're just wasting away. Your hair is falling out. You literally think that you're turning into a corpse along the way. Like this is like a problem.
That like melting emoji, that melting face,
That's,
that was me.
and I think there's that moment in most people with hyperthyroid where, especially in your case, there had to be a few moments where you're like, I guess this is just my lot in life. Like I'll never be good again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's Graves' disease. Then now from here and forever, your body will produce this antibody when it decides to get angry.
Mhm.
And so the answer usually right now has always been to this point to take out the thyroid and then it can't do it anymore, which is kind of treating the symptom and not the disease because the disease is an immune system. So now they're making new drugs that will help block that immuno response that you have. But of course, those will be more than most people's houses to get a hold of. So that's Graves' disease. And so here you are, and to the doctor, this is a simple, which way do you want me to take it out? I mean,
Yeah.
that's really all she was asking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Choose option 1 or 2.
and they're really going to lean on option one heavily with the radioactive, which freaks you out. They're going to lean very because it's easy, it takes care of everything, and it's done.
It never sat well with me. And, for a handful of reasons, I didn't want to do it. I think mostly because at that point I was so exhausted, so tired of dealing with this, and I just wanted to feel better again. What I didn't want was that waning hormone level as my thyroid is slowly dying and I'm having to compensate with a little more levothyroxine. I don't want to figure out the perfect poison of how much meds are compensating for my slowly dying thyroid.
Well, they don't talk to you about your parathyroid and the fact that it's going to mess with your calcium, which then become a crisis. And they don't actually tell you all of that until after or if they do, you don't hear it.
Yeah, yeah. My gut said, just remove it, just do surgery, right?
Right.
Is it 5 times more expensive? Is it like what are we looking at? I don't know, all those things. With my insurance, how much does it cost? I don't know. I am Googling how much does the thyroidectomy cost? Like the
Every,
internet is going to tell me what my insurance is. So anyway, I ended up just at a routine like OBGYN appointment in the middle of all of this. And I had explained it to my doctor then. And she was like, absolutely not. We do not treat people like that. She swooped me up, pulled me out from that doctor that made me cry, and said, I will, you'll see someone. And that doctor was 1 year out of medical school.
oh,
Was She was fresh, she was bright eyed, she was, for better or worse, you know, green. She was not naive, but she wasn't jaded. She
that's
wasn't
the
jaded.
word right there. She
Yeah.
hadn't been beaten down as of yet.
Yeah. And I walked in her doors and I just instantly knew this was going to be a much better fit. And we talked through a couple of things. And right, like the golden question is like, if this was your mom, what would you recommend to her? Would you
Right.
suggest radioactive iodine or a thyroidectomy? And she said, honestly, radioactive iodine. And I was like, great. Good luck to your mom. I still feel like I need to have the surgery. But she did say, and here's the thing, all along, everybody I had seen said, but you still need to get the booster. And I said, This booster made my heart beat 200 beats a minute. Is the next dose, is the half, the next half going to make my heart beat 300 beats a minute?
What did
Is
she
it still
say
gonna
when you
be
asked people what did they say? So I kinda got I have this very strong opinion.
okay?
I truly believe that someone's healthcare should be their choice. I know that sounds terrible, but I
Radical.
really 100% think that I don't have a voice in your healthcare until it
Mhm.
impacts me. And in this case, by the time that you're looking for the booster, most of society had been infected. Like it had pushed
Yeah.
through. So at this point, if you're living with someone with leukemia, that I have an opinion or two. But for the most part, when somebody asks me, my answer is usually, I'm not going to answer that. What do you want to do? So I'm really curious to see what you
I
heard.
asked everybody. I mean, because right, if I got my first dose in March of 21, by 4 weeks later, I should have gotten my second dose, but I already felt bad. And so I was
Right.
like, I'm holding off on this. I can't do this. And I asked all the doctors along the way, and everybody just pushed, do you remember? I mean, you remember, like, what a time to be alive.
Well, everybody had an opinion. They all thought they knew what was best for everybody else. And the worst part was we were so isolated for so long. We were begging for attention. So when I had little kids, the child that was picking fights with everybody who was being belligerent, it takes till about your second or third kid. You realize all you really got to do is pay attention. And when society did it, we all threw our fits. Instead, we just kept throwing them at each
Yeah.
other instead of listening at all.
Yeah.
And that's where it was. It's like they were
Mm.
so opinionated all the time. And I don't know, it was like exhausting to have that. I don't know how people have that many opinions. Like for me, there's just it's too tiring. I'm kind of lazy. Like, I mean, as cookies go, a snickerdoodle's the best cookie. I'll fight that one to death. But the rest,
Worthy fights to fight.
right? Like which cookie? If you only get one cookie, I have a fight. But in the case of what you is best for you,
Yeah.
I see a guy go down the road without his helmet on his head, and I'm like, he made that choice. Like, I would never
Yeah.
if it's my kid, he gets home and he's done for. But for you, you have a right. But then that same person would get off that motorcycle and have a huge opinion on what you need to do with a needle. And that was a very curious thing because we'd never experienced that.
The narrative is completely written by the channels that we are subscribing to and the things that we're
Oh,
allowed to
yeah.
come into our feed. So I feel like my echo chamber was very pro vaccine, right? And
Right.
the medical, I just feel like there was one party line that I was hearing from every medical professional, and it was, you still need to get the booster.
And it scared you.
The
And you had a
booster's
right to be scared.
not, the booster's not going to make this worse. And I would say, well, why not? How do you know?
Right.
How do you know? None of you knew me.
Right.
You only know this version of me. You didn't know 2019 or 2020 version of me.
Were they good at listening to you when they said it? Because that's the other thing I remember those days is
Mm.
you had to have an opinion and I'd be like, okay, you have to or you don't have to. Like,
They all just said, you still need to get the booster.
like nobody said, why are you nervous? Like
Yeah.
what happened? Is there something that could be said or done that would make you feel better? Like instead, they're like, no, this is true. Like, we have all this data. And I think we all got so tired of hearing about this data
Yeah.
because I had more data on the vehicle I bought than I did on the booster. And I'm really not trying to make a joke. Like, it is funny, but the truth is I could go on and I knew how that car had acted for 10 years.
Yep.
And so I do believe in science and I do believe in all those things 100%. But I also believe that people have choice, and anytime you take that choice away from them, in America, if I say you have to or you don't have to, you're gonna do the opposite just
Yeah.
because I said it.
Yeah. And there was a very narrow, impossibly non existent window for people who were not anti vax, but also had real lived experience, negative experiences with the vaccine. So
Right.
I felt very validated in my opinions and my decision to hold off on the booster until I had a more reasonable explanation of what it would or would not do to me. So this angel doctor, Queen Angel Doctor, said, we know a lot, but we don't know everything. And that was like the humility that I needed that I hadn't received for the 6 months prior from any I had seen. And
See, that's so perfect.
she explained, she said, you are on levothyroxine. It is regulating the amount of hormones that are coming through your system. The booster will not, whatever she explained it to me, it made sense to me. And I was like, okay, I can feel good about that. So I also want to go to New York. I also need my card to complete.
Yeah, but it's cool though, because what you're saying is that it wasn't about the booster, it wasn't about the shot, it was about being heard.
Yeah. And my questions being answered in a very reasonable and kind way.
And you're out though from the time that it all started until you found your angel doctor. How many months do you think you're out by this point?
I started feeling crummy in March to September, and then I had surgery in October.
So, as an outsider, since I work in the system, if you could point at the reason why it took that long for someone to start listening, what would you say? Like, if you were to say, okay, this is what I think is wrong. Like, I love hearing what's wrong. If you're a defensive person and you think you're right all the time, you're the most miserable person to be around. The best thing to do is say, is what am I doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? And you hear it, your world like opens up because that second you get to see that other person and you see them as a person rather than as a boxing
Yeah.
competitor. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
what would you say, looking at that situation, what would you say is wrong with the healthcare system?
So the fact that I didn't have a primary care doc, that held me up a little bit.
Yeah.
The fact that I held my own with the doctor that made me cry, right? I had to do a little bit of a start over to find a new doctor. So that took a little bit more time. But beyond that, that's where I find like what could I have done and changed and lessons learned on my part. But beyond that, it is purely bureaucracy and red tape that
There you
hold
go.
things up.
You have, so there are legitimately programs that the doctor has to watch. And if they haven't done step one, they cannot, the
Right.
computer will have a hard stop saying so you have to have a doctor or a nurse who will bypass it with some workaround that they've figured out to
Yeah.
even get you to the next place. And so then they'll even, like, even in medications. So once you're on thyroid medications, there's a lot of people who levothyroxine is not their best friend. They just don't like it.
Yeah.
But then their insurance are dictating they have to take levothyroxine for whatever reason.
Mhm.
So they're being told they have to do this thing. And then someone like you, your help, you've paid into the system how long before you even really used it?
I mean, 20 something years, right?
So they owe it. Like, honestly, at this point, you put the down payment on a
Yeah.
long time ago. Like,
Yep.
you got a better deal on your COVID Airbnb than you did on your health insurance because they gave you back all that money, you know?
Yep. Yep.
And so I'm with you. I think the bureaucracy has become this place where you have to become an expert in the healthcare system, even for something. And I'm going to say this now because I understand you. And for you, it was one in a million.
Yeah.
It was fairly routine. I have an ENT that says if you're a woman and you're over the age of 45, you have thyroid issues. Like,
Totally.
that is like
Totally.
he says all the time. They have it. They all have it. 100% have them. So yours is something that should have been walk into an Instacare, and Instacare says, okay, we're going to get you into a specialist. And you would have been a month and done. But this is like 6 months in, and you've become an expert because now you know on the portal, if I put this thing in the portal, I'll get a response.
Mhm.
They want me to do this, this, and this. They won't even answer my questions. They're going to give me this thing. So now I have to turn to all. You became an expert on thyroid inadvertently.
Every night, Google, nightly scroll, learning about my thyroid.
And you're talking to people, you're in support groups. And that's the interesting thing. Any more people are learning their healthcare from a support group.
Mhm.
And that's the only reason why they're really finding their way through, which is crazy to me because there should have been someone along the way that says, okay, here's really what will happen. So wrap your head around these ideas, come back to me once you've talked, and then let's talk about it in 3 days. So here, go do your stuff and come back.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, I mean, I'm jumped at the chance to talk to you about this because I've not told this story except for just in a highlight of the process on Instagram. But like, I want the opportunity to have a landing place because I do still get emails from people or DMs from people that are like, tell me what. And it's such a thing. It's more than one message can relay. And so I'm glad for the chance to be able to tell the story and send them to one specific place to say, here it is.
I get more questions about weight loss drugs than anything else right now. Are they safe? Can I stay on them for long term? And yeah, I have a few concerns. Because you have to ask yourself, why did we need the shot in the first place? Our bodies produce GLP-1 inside the L cells, and those are found inside your small intestine. Whatever you can do to help those L cells produce its own GLP would be immensely important. And in this case, Triquartra's got GLP Activate. GLP Activate combines multiple products in order to help your own L cells be the healthiest they can. And when the L cell's happy, you put out your own GLP and you don't have to take those shots. It also puts the amount that your body's used to having so you can go back to the way it was. GLP Activate. So you want to go right now to triquartrahealth.com and put in code GLP120. Get your GLP Activate, figure out what's going on in there instead of just trying to overwhelm it. Yeah, so I want to talk about the radioactive iodine because I'm with you. So at the pharmacist,
Mhm.
iodine is this great big huge monstrous chemical. And so when you make it radioactive, it's just on this really far outer shell. For me, I know that the radioactive iodine that you have is very slow moving. It's not that dangerous. In fact, we have enough molybdenum in our water in Utah. I know this stuff. So when somebody says radioactive iodine to me, I'm almost like, whatever. But for you, let's walk you through the day. Let's walk through the little process of what you did once they decided that you had a hyperthyroid. It was time to get rid of it. Tell me how that whole system looked from your eyes, because from my eyes, I know how it works, and mostly you just have to have your own toilet and away you go.
So I didn't do the radioactive iodine. I passed on it.
Oh,
I did the surgery.
look at you.
I
See, I just got
bypassed
jump
it
in.
and went straight to surgery. And I don't know, maybe I'm being dramatic, but I thought like this is going to turn into cancer. This is going to be cancer. Like just get it out. And we did an
Well,
ultrasound and there were nodules there. And so I felt out the more validated. And truthfully, just dollar for dollar, it was just as it was one and done in a week.
do you have
I
any regrets? Because this is going to be something people ask. Do you have any regrets for going the way that you did instead?
No, no,
Well,
it
there you
was
go.
kind of the swift and that's what I wanted, right? Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't wanna have to guess and, like, my levels were fluctuating as my thyroid was slowly dissolving with the radioactive. I just remove it. Oh,
Right.
wait, do I have regrets? I do. I do.
Uh, well,
Because
I was
I
gonna say I regret over the sandwich I chose for lunch. Like, I got the chicken, I really wanted turkey now, so good for you, because I can't I live my life in regrets.
the surgery itself, I recognized super routine. My doctor, I saw him up at Huntsman, and he maybe specialized in cancer, which the fact that they had referred me to him and I was like, "Ooh, is there cancer in there?" Like we're all thinking cancer. He
It's
was
just a hard it's such a hard surgery, so they wanted somebody super skilled. Did they
is it
tell you
hard?
that part? Oh,
No.
yeah, nodules. So the thing about your neck is when they open up, all your veins, all your vocal cords, there are so many things. So your ENT surgeons, because of what they're digging around in there, like, it's crazy. If you look at it, you're like, "I don't even know how you saw it." So it's a crazy hard surgery just to kinda put it out there because if you move a little bit, you don't talk because it hits your
Right.
vocal nerve. So they sent you up there because of the skill level.
Okay, so I saw he was like a department head, but he was really great. He was very wonderful, very like bedside manner. I felt like I deserved him after having the other doctors that I had. And so I felt like I was in good hands. That we had a running joke. I'm a professional communicator. I talk to strangers for a living. And he was explaining to me, the risks, the teeny tiny 1% chance that this is going to happen. As he's wheeling me into the OR, he said, now remember, like, you could lose your vocal cords, that you could. And I was like, now remember, don't sever my vocal cords because I talk for a living. And that was like our final exchange.
Right.
And then I woke up and like, my expectations of what I was gonna sound like and what it was gonna be like were I recognize they cut into my throat. I don't know the order of things back here, but also that's a sensitive spot. So I was super raspy. And he came in, if I woke up at like 1 o'clock, he came in by 4 o'clock that afternoon and he was like, you should sound better than this. And it was like instant fright.
Oh,
He said,
no.
I'm gonna send the speech therapist in tomorrow. If let's just take it day by day. I still sounded terrible. And they said, if you don't improve through this coming week, we'll have to send you to the vocal clinic. And I didn't improve. And because I talk for a living, I'd taken the week off. By the end of that week, I had tried to, it's so easy to not be heard when you are in a really captive one on one audience, if you're in
Yeah.
close quarters and you can talk to a person. But if you walk right outside or you're competing with any other noise, I absolutely could not be heard.
Oh,
And so
no.
about a week later, I felt fine. I tried to go do my job on a Friday and, I'm 5, 6 days after out of surgery. So I called the nurse. Thankfully, I had the nurse's line. So I called the nurse and she
And
was
you
like,
whispered to this.
"Oh, absolutely, right?" And
Yes.
she was pretty dismissive. And she was like, "You're going to be fine. You're not supposed to feel better or sound better by today." I said, "I totally hear you." The doctor was alarmed. So I don't want to wait 1 month until my follow-up. I don't want to go 3 more weeks until my follow-up and then I walk into his office and he's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" So this is me waving the flag.
Yeah.
This is bad. And he knew it. And the speech therapist knew it, and it's absolutely her job to be his gatekeeper, right? She was doing her job, but
Right.
she kind of went party line, just nothing could deviate from, like, she was a little bit like, "There. You'll be fine. You'll be
Right.
fine."
It's another shh moment. Like
Yeah.
it's that other take your medicine moment. That the first doctor that
Yes.
like this, the whole podcast is made take your medicine because every person has that moment where they were just told, just take your medicine and get out of the office. And I love that because you show this. So there's in a good story, you have a character that develops. So at the
Mhm.
beginning of your story, I got to be honest,
Uh-huh.
you're a little shy, kind of
Uh-huh.
out. You were kind of this slow. And then you've bloomed through it now because I have a feeling by that point you were a fighter. You've gone through your training montage. You had
Yeah.
become like, no, this isn't going to stand.
Yep.
And
Well,
so
so
it's cool how that character happens in every medical story I have. You have this character development. It always starts with the, I don't want to be a problem. It's
uh-huh.
okay. I must be
Oh,
fine. And by the end of it, you've tied the headband back. You ripped the shoulder, you ripped the sleeves off your shirt. You drew first
Aubrey
blood
versus
moment.
Nurse Anne. Yeah, I
But
remember.
you're on. So
So, I mean, but also I couldn't talk. Like, that was really hard. That was really hard. It took all of the energy that I had to place that phone call to her. And she said, "Well, just don't talk unless it's absolutely necessary." And I was like, "Wait, 8 hours a day. That's what I do."
it's a sweet way to tell you to shut up.
I know, I know.
Like now,
So
sweetie, just a shh.
I gave it a go. Thanks for talking me up as the fighter, but I couldn't convey just without a voice, even one dialogue on the phone. If she talked over me, I could not be heard. And just as an aside, we're still in 2021. Stores aren't all open. Things aren't happening. I could not order through a drive through. And it was I was very mindful of people with any sort of disabilities or adaptive need because we don't create the
I love
situations
that.
conducive to those people. Like, I could not, stores were closed and I couldn't order a vanilla ice cream cone through the McDonald's drive through.
Isn't it funny how empathy is so important? Like you can have sympathy for somebody thinking, oh, poor you.
Yeah.
But empathy is the greater of the two emotions because at that moment, you become an advocate for anyone in that
Mhm.
situation from here until eternity. It's too bad that we always have to learn our lessons the hard way.
Right.
It's funny because I always think that everything leads to something else. So, I've had really bad years and really good
Mhm.
years. And when it gets bad, I think, okay, this is a lesson. And I think this now that I'm 50. I didn't think this when I was 30. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, this is going to come in handy. And it's been kind of amazing how being that person maybe was the best thing that happened because I was able to do something kind later for someone
Mhm.
else. So I love the fact that you're advocating for people who have any
Yeah.
sort of issues.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a great lesson to learn. And it's just a
Well,
bit of a cherry on top of.
they threw some steroids at you after a little bit. The inflammation went down.
No, so I did have to wait the whole month until my follow-up appointment with my doctor,
Okay.
and they tried to reschedule me. I was in the waiting room, and he had to rush to the ER, and I was like, "Nope, I'm gonna sit here and wait because I am not going to go until I hear that this is." I mean, it did not improve. It
Right.
it
Your
absolutely
life
did
is
not improve.
impacted. This is stopping. We're gonna fix this.
Yeah, so I held out, and immediately when he walked in the office, he was so fatherly and he was so apologetic. I wanted to say, even though I had no voice, like, "Tell that to Anne, tell that to
Yeah.
your nurse." I tried to tell her, and he said instantly, "We're gonna send you to the voice clinic. We're gonna get you this injection." They inject Juvederm.
Yep.
So he scoped right. So half of my vocal cord was paralyzed. He said, "I didn't sever your vocal cord, but as I pulled that nerve away, either the elasticity didn't bounce back or something,"
Right.
which was absolutely like, I don't think he did it wrong. I don't think it was
No, it's just part of the
right. It
process,
just
unfortunately.
was. So he pulls that nerve away and your vocal cord, your sound comes out when your vocal cords slap together
Yeah.
and one half was paralyzed open.
Right.
As I was slapping, nothing was, it wasn't hitting it. So I constantly, it just, it sounded like I had the worst case of bronchitis for 6 weeks. So he wanted to pencil me into the vocal clinic. I got in super fast. And like I have a fair amount of like vanity about me. I've never tried fillers, but I've tried other things that are made by the same supplier as Juvederm, and
Yeah.
I've had very severe reactions to them. And so the vocal clinic said, and I was 2 or 3 days away from celebrating my 40th birthday in Mexico. And she said, I am not going to put this in your down your throat and send you off to a foreign country. Because also, maybe the scariest thing of all is that they were going to go with a scope down my nose and a needle down my mouth and fill me with hyaluronic acid.
Yeah, this isn't getting a dirty Diet Coke. Like, this takes a little more effort. Yeah, I
Like,
gotcha.
I felt like I deserve the biggest prize of all, and
Right.
I need someone here to hold my hand. This is worse than surgery. This is I'm awake for this. Like this
Right.
torture and so scary. But I could potentially have a bad reaction to this thing that is in my airway.
Yeah.
Like I don't want this. So the doctor was really ENT who did my surgery. He was very compassionate but he was also really realistic. He said 50-50 chance this is permanent. And that frightened me because that was like, do I
Change of life.
do I need to think of a new career? Like, I
Right.
can't do this. Like, this is life altering in a way that I was like, oh, here I am thinking I'm doing a good thing by taking the vaccine, getting the vaccine, and then I have the surgery, and there's an outside chance that there's, bad side effect. And here, trying to get the fix to that, and there's an outside chance that this is going to be permanent. Like, I can't win with all of this.
Who did you call? Because there's this person
Here,
there. So for me, there
best.
was a
Yeah.
time where I seriously was sitting in the store on a Sunday, slumped on the ground.
Mhm.
And there's only one person I wanted there. It was my wife. That was
Yeah.
it. I didn't want anybody else there.
Yep.
Who did you call at that moment when you were like, "Okay, I can't do this anymore?"
I called my dad.
Oh, there we go.
My dad is the best at talking through, it's a 40-minute conversation and it's like a little bit of like, where should we travel next? And did you read this book? And did you that, like we have solved the world's problems in total, not just that one thing, right?
Right.
It's such a more holistic approach to, I've got this problem. Tell me what the answer is.
Sometimes you gotta paint all the happy trees in the background before
Yeah,
the very middle of the Bob Ross
it
paints.
is, it
I
is
understand it. Like,
very disarming. Yeah.
he
Like,
paints the whole picture, and then all of a sudden, wait, how did Bob Ross your dad is
yeah.
Bob Ross of therapy. It sounds
Yeah,
fantastic.
that's exactly the case. And here's another thing here's another little lesson learned. I was pulling out of the University of Utah. There was a lot of road construction happening, and up there at the hospital, there's a lot of like windy roads that are really only
Yeah.
going one place. I work in engineering road construction. Like I speak Flagger. I knew what was going on. I was coming down the hill and I can't speak through the Bluetooth of my car because I can't talk.
Oh,
So
no.
my voice has to be on my phone up to my ear for my dad to be able to hear me.
Yeah.
So I am stopped by a flagger. I stop. Like I know with full certainty, I am not distracted, but I am having this conversation with my dad as I am leaving the Huntsman Cancer Institute. And the
Yeah.
flagger just unleashes, right?
Oh, no.
There's this, there's that. And I thought, of all of the places for
Right.
there to be a kind flagger. There are so many sacred phone calls that are being had as you're pulling out of the Huntsman Cancer Institute. Mine is the easiest, right? Easily the most lightweight conversation happening,
Out of that yeah, absolutely.
exiting the Cancer Institute. But nobody deserves that. Nobody
No,
deserves that.
and
The circumstances required me to be on my phone right then.
the funny thing about that too is that flagger went home and was screaming about this lady that wouldn't listen. Like, the funny thing about it, whenever we're really worked up, I found this to be true 100% of the time. The other side's really worked up too, and it is completely ineffective. And
Mhm.
so that person being angry and then telling you didn't actually make anything better. Like, I've never had anybody say by yelling at that person, I feel so much better. Like, that's
Yeah.
not a thing. You're telling the story to me right now because you didn't feel better and you want to feel
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I agree
Yeah.
with you. Like, you should be aware of people all the time, no matter how bad your day is. You don't know how bad that other person's day is.
Yeah. Just compassion goes a long way.
Yeah.
Well, just human to human.
So your dad's on the phone. You're getting cussed out while you're talking to him.
Yeah, I mean, my parents were along for the ride, but also honestly, like, so was every single friend. Like I said, I treated this like it was that I was the one in a million.
But
Uh,
you are one of the
hey,
million.
this has never happened to anyone else ever before. I made everyone hear it. Internet heard it, Instagram, my audience heard it, and there was a lot of people who were invested along the way, which I feel grateful that I could be a resource to people who needed it, but also that there was that many people who cared about my well-being. My friends, definitely, I brought a very, very solid crew of friends and family who humored me as if I was one in a million.
See, the thing I really love about this is you looked at it, you made a choice. The choice didn't go as smooth as you'd like. You still stand by what you did. And if I don't believe, I actually don't believe that anything like we have to learn the way we do. So I don't really like the term of what would you do differently.
Mhm.
What I do believe in is I've heard a quote once that says, a wise man learns from his mistake. A wiser man learns from somebody else's mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for people out there who think they're struggling with thyroid, what is the wiser man going to do for this?
The wisest person is going to have, even when they feel healthy, even before they're struggling with their thyroid, is going to have a primary care physician.
Period, right? You should
Go
have one,
in, yeah, you have one. Be on someone's role, right?
especially when you don't need them. So you can go in there in the 15 minutes, you're like, high five, doc, I'm out. Because then you
Yeah.
have that relationship.
If it's your annual physical, if it's just routine blood work, if it's anything, just go. Like everyone go home, schedule an appointment right now. Do it on your phone. Just
Okay, that's
get
number one. I'm on
yeah.
board. What's number two?
Number 2 is fight like hell for yourself. Not one person involved in this story knew me before May of 21, except for me. And I knew myself. I knew what was normal and I knew what wasn't normal. And I wasn't going to take a stranger's professional opinion until they had heard me out, until they treated me as if I was an individual instead of a thyroid case, right?
Because you are one in a billion
Mhm.
to you.
Yeah.
That other doctor, you'd be one of eight just in the last hour. But to you,
Yes.
you will always be that. And so you will fight for yourself stronger.
Yeah. I just think stick to your guns and like stick to your gut. I don't regret. I didn't take one medication and I knew signing up to have my thyroid removed or the radioactive iodine, either one of those options were going to require me to take a medication every day for the rest of my life. And that seemed like a really big commitment. But I
It
could
is.
not believe it. And everyone was like, it's just a tiny little pill. And it is. It's like a third of the size of an Advil. It's tiny, but it's the commitment to it's the long term, right?
Well, and being dependent on something is nothing that any of us like. Like, it
Right.
doesn't matter if it's so there, it's not addiction, but dependent means you have to take it every day.
Yeah.
Dependency is something that we've been trained not to have.
And what I proudly will say as like rule follower of the world, I've never missed one single day of since then, right? And I think a little bit of it is out of fear of I never want to feel that way again. I never. I It took a long time. I'm what it was October of 21, so I'm 3 years out, and I barely this year feel like I can walk around the block, I feel like myself. My hair's not falling out anymore,
No,
like
you
like,
look fantastic.
"Thank
You've come out the
thank
other
you."
side of the tunnel. You
Yeah,
survived.
and it took a minute, but if it's taking that tiny little pill, do it all day long.
Right. Okay. So here's the thing though. I
Okay.
really do love all of your stuff on Instagram. So explain to the people what it is you do and how they can find you. Because I gotta send them your way because everything anyway, I love your stuff. So you explain it
You're
your
fine.
way because for me, I just like bright colors. So you got to explain what it is you do, where you're at, and how they can find you.
Oh, okay. Well, I am just a regular girl. I'm like corporate America by day. I'm bright and colorful. I own a small business called Hello Maple with just the wool felt ball. But on my personal account, which is Aubrey E. Liz, it's a lot of my manicures, it's home decor, it's craft projects. It's like realistically my fun single life, but just kind of living happily, if that's
Absolutely.
what it
Tell me that. Let's get your tagline again. What's your handle again on Instagram?
what is it? My just my
Go
handle. Send them to Aubrey Eliz, AubryEliz.
one more time because I'm going to have them say it 3 times because then you remember it. This is for everybody. So say it one more time so we can throw it out there again.
Aubrey Eliz.
Absolutely wonderful. Your story is amazing.
You.
I
Thank
loved
you.
every minute of it. You know, you're wonderful, right?
I feel
You're
like thank you.
wonderful.
That's very kind of you.
And I want to say more than anything, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story.